Joining me now is Virginia Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan. Congresswoman, thank you very much and welcome back to the Capitol Review. Let's get right into it. You made history earlier this year for becoming the first black woman to represent the Commonwealth in Congress. Now, prior to that, you served several years in Virginia's state capitol. Talk about your first few months in Congress. How are things going?
Things are going well. I jumped right in and got right in the middle of the fight to lift the debt ceiling and just hit the ground running.
Well, you know, the hope, Congresswoman, is the men and women like you, new people in Congress, can maybe make a difference. But then there are those who may feel, well, they're new, they don't have seniority, they just fall in line and rubber stamp. Can new people like yourself make a difference moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've already made a difference fighting some of the most extreme amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So yes, new people can make a difference. I think it helps. Having spent over 18 years in the state legislature helped me hit the ground running.
Reaching over to the other side of the aisle, or is that something that you plan on doing moving forward?
Yes, I mean, I had a long history in the General Assembly of reaching across the aisle. I spent 14 years in the minority party, but was still able to get over 300 pieces of legislation passed. With the Virginia delegation, I served with all of the Republican members except one. We talk regularly. So where we can find common ground, I do that. And where we can't, I just push until I persist to get what I think is right for my constituents in the country.
Congresswoman, there was another scary moment, as I'm sure that you are aware of, for Senate Minority Leader Mitch McClellan when he froze during a news conference. You know, what's your reaction to that?
You know, I hope he is doing well. I understand he has been cleared by his doctor. And beyond that, you know, I'm not going to speak to his health. I just hope he's doing well.
And happening now, Alabama Senator Tuberville is blocking military promotions. I know you're aware of this. What impact does that have for the DMV and the surrounding region?
It has a very negative impact. As you know, our armed services are very important to Virginia. We now, for the first time in our history, have 3 of the chairman positions for the Joint Chiefs of Staff are not filled because of his extreme actions that a majority of the American people actually disagree with. And it is for all of our service members whose appointments are in limbo, it really puts them and their families in an untenable situation as they can't make plans going forward. And I think our servicemen and women deserve better.
And, you know, we're a month away from a potential government shutdown, pardon me. What does Congress need to do to make sure that that's avoided?
Well, we need to come in and pass the 12 appropriations acts that are pending. House Democrats and Senate Democrats and Republicans, I think, are ready to do that. Unfortunately, the Chaos Caucus, as I call the Freedom Caucus, is holding things up with their extreme demands that I think a majority of the American people do not agree with. We need to just focus on making sure that we are funding the government and not bringing culture wars that can't pass on their own merits, holding the appropriations process hostage like the Chaos Caucus Republicans are doing.
You know, it's interesting you talk about chaos and extremism. You know, most folks want both sides of the aisle to work together. How can we get there with such a toxic climate that currently exists?
You know, I think a majority of members of Congress are ready to get there, even in the Republican Party. It is really a handful that are holding our legislative work hostage. I think that Speaker McCarthy needs to focus on governing and not focusing on appeasing a handful of people in his caucus to stay in power. And I think if he does that and we focus on what the American people send us there to do, which is to solve problems and help people, then we will able to move forward. And I think a majority of members of Congress are there to do that and are ready to do that when we come back from recess.
Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, thank you very much.
Thank you.